in the room, we have Pat Malley and
Kevin Jacoby.
yeah, and then Rob's also in here, and me.
I can see you guys.
Okay, and so Chris is on the call, and Rufus, and then of course Mary, and so I think we're ready. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so I'm going to call our Finance and Audit Committee meeting to order on September 12th, 3 o'clock. Technically, it's 3:04. I'm going to read the statement of announcement, and then we'll go from there. So a news release announcing the date, time, and place, September 12th, 2019, Finance and Audit Committee meeting was distributed September 11th, 2019 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. Americans with Disabilities Act, the public has been notified. The accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistants, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance. So I know we don't have a quorum, but so our subcommittee is lean. So we're basically conducting this meeting since business is being conducted, and we want to stay informed on matters that affect finance and audit. So I don't know if we need to adopt an agenda, but I will make a motion to adopt or can I get a motion? But I think, Gary, we wouldn't really be doing that since we don't have a first.
I think we actually have a quorum on the subcommittee, right? Because the subcommittee consists of a minimum of three people, and we have 2. So I think we can actually have a subcommittee meeting. That's
okay. I think so too.
Okay.
But we just can't then use that at the full commission because we won't have a quorum of the full commission.
Okay.
But I do think we have
Right.
Okay.
we have that, and I would make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay. So it's
You second it.
okay. I'll second it. Okay. I'm seconding the.
I think with 2 people, we just go directly to voting. Yes.
Okay. So we've adopted
Hearing none.
the agenda. I think for all intents and purposes, it's just 2 of us. And I think we better say yes. Okay, so the third item on the agenda is the budget ask for 2021. So I will turn it over, I guess, to Pat or Chris to.
I'm gonna do the detail. Mary, you want to give us a warm up, or you want to jump right into it?
I think given that we're all like remote, I think it'd probably be easier if I just comment if I see anything we need to comment on.
Okay. Okay, hopefully everybody has a copy of the 3-page summary. We have 10 budget priorities, and I'll just go 1 through 10. I'm not going to read it. I'll just paraphrase it and give the dollar amount.
Okay.
I'll talk a little bit more about number 1 because that's probably the most important and the most complex. It's a $10 million budget request in 100% dollars, and that's $2.9 million state funds, $7.1 million Medicaid match. And that is to increase the residential service rate. We're in a really good position this year, but as usual, we have to have all the data to line up to really turn the wheels and get everybody from HHS through the legislature to get on board with our request. The rate increase, we're only asking for 10. It's a very conservative 10. We're going to work with HHS throughout the fall. We have to perfect our cost reports, our administrative contracts, and a few other financial questions they have. But the ultimate goal is sometime later in the fall, we'll look at this $10 amount and possibly revise it upwards if we're able to. And the basis for our ask is our cost reports show that the providers' expenses in the community in fiscal year 17 were $30 more million than revenue we got. And what that means is our rates are not high enough, and that $30 million of cost out there, we could have rate increases that wouldn't cost us any state dollars. So some of our future rate may not even require state funds to match because we have excess costs sitting on the books. And the second reason is the Mercer report, which has not been fully released, but we have all of it but the rates. And when you look at the detail of the assumptions, the assumptions are, we fully expect a large residential rate increase. So the report justifies the rate increase. So we got the Mercer report, we got costs, we got HHS, everybody's lined up for a healthy residential rate. We got to start conservatively,
Right.
get the information, and I'm hoping sometime before December 1st that HHS will get in sufficient confidence that they will support a higher rate increase because they are the rate center. So
Right.
we're going in conservatively $10 million. We did this last year. Everybody understood that given the state of flux of our finances, that things will settle and that we can have a firmer number later this fall and certainly before the General Assembly starts. But we do have to turn the number. We're turning in 10 million.
What did we turn in last year? Do you remember?
Our total ask last year was,
Regarding this line item.
That line item, I think it was 5 million.
it was 5 million for all rates because we had very
Yeah.
little information then. And they weren't going to give us any.
Okay.
Because we didn't have the data to support it, but now we do.
Okay. All right.
Number 2 is a respite rate increase. And there's multiple reasons to support this. The most quantitative way to look at it is all our consumers, when they go through the case managers and their needs are identified and authorized, they're authorized for $30 million of respite. They only spend 19.4 million. I would say a substantial part of that is there's a lack of adequate access to actual respite providers that is inhibiting consumers spending funds they're authorized to spend and justify. And so what we want to do is to increase access by making the rate higher, which again, I believe part of the Mercer report is going to address this rate. And without seeing the rate specific, I feel certain that looking at their assumptions, their rate is a very healthy rate increase. So we're not out of line asking for a rate increase. But our business case behind the rate increase is that we have to raise the rate sufficiently to attract new providers into the market. And a little history on this is, you guys give me the exact year, but it was 5, 6, or 7 years ago when we got rate increases in respite, but the rate increases were insufficient, and a lot of the boards got out of the market and wanted everybody to basically, consumers, go hire your own caregivers and work through the respite coalition and third-party pays. And that's just the works. It's just a clunkier system.
Yeah, so Jasper County, I think Jasper County does some of the, yeah.
Go ahead, Mary. Oops. I thought you were going to say something. All right, well, I'll keep on going. So the whole point is, if we raise the rate.
All right, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. The problem with the way the rate increase was done last time was not only in the dollar amount, which was not sufficient to cover employee costs, but it was also in the way it was messaged, so that people were very confused as to who got the raise and who didn't. So if you were actually employing your respite providers and you were told you had to pay them the new rate, it left no money for you to actually be an employer of those people. So we wanted to make sure we messaged this properly, and how we came upon the rate was basically, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. It was basically adding employment costs, and I think that that's in that second paragraph, to make sure that we incentivize providers to supervise the respite sitters too. So it's not all falling on the families.
Right. Okay, yeah, I'm very familiar, with that whole program.
Me too.
Personal. So one thing that makes me think about another change that might layer in with this, in terms of it, increasing the money so that maybe you can have more people, access it and know about it. Maybe the case management changing that were just made, that requires more frequent contact with families, more information and resources. I can see maybe there being an increase in knowledge of respite because they're going to have more touch points with case managers throughout any given year as opposed to years past. And that could hopefully, help people become more familiar with the respite options and comfortable, moving forward with them or trying to utilize them rather. So.
Oh, and get them in the fight of helping to find some.
Find people, yes.
Helping them locate respite centers and directing them a little bit more than it's so hands off right now that folks are having trouble finding their way.
Yeah, and I do. I've heard that, in several different areas of my community and different things that I've attended about the dire need for respite caregivers. It's pretty much anybody I've spoken with that works in the disability community. That's like one of the first things that is brought up when issues are discussed, or with a certain population. It tends to always come down to respite. So.
Well, the other thing is we're proposing is that we do put a minimum pay rate in there.
Yeah. So
that the respite providers don't get lowballed by the private providers that will take this healthy $15 or something rate that we're asking and pay their caregivers minimum wage.
Right.
We want to attract good folks to this, and we want to keep them. And to do that, you have to pay them.
Yeah. So what do we require the private providers that offer respite? Because are there any boards that do respite? Are there any boards?
Just your.
Okay. So I guess maybe so I don't want to say just private providers, maybe private providers and boards who offer respite. What are they required to pay their workers? Like what is the, if they get $12.50 an hour, are they required to any certain amount that has to go to the respite worker and that the rest they take off for their own keep kind of thing? Can you speak to that, Mary?
Well, I can tell you that as a board, York only gets $11.30, doesn't get $12.69. Those are for the direct billers, and we do not pay our respite sitters $11.30. We backed out their unemployment, workers' comp. What else do we like FICA, that kind of? We back out employment costs, and we pay them. Or the employment taxes. I'm sorry, I'm not good at this. Chris could answer it better, but we back all that out and we pay them, I think, $10.35.
So York did that, but did everybody?
Yes. No, if you go to Res Care or my respite sitter gets, I think she gets $9 an hour.
Right there.
But
she's not with York. The way it was messaged to the DSN boards through I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I am too.
The Tom Waring sent out a memo that stated that all providers had to pay their caregivers actually $11.30 an hour. And that basically it was pretty strongly worded, that left very little room for interpretation. So Kevin, I guess you were about to say something in regards to that too, but
yeah, so pretty much,
their boards are actually losing money on every single unit of service.
right. So generally when we look at it, if you had boards that like Maxability, and there are a couple more in the state, pretty much that's what they're doing. They're taking that $11.60, $11.30 that they're getting, backing out employment costs,
Right.
and the pass-through is roughly $10.50 that goes to the worker. Then you have some boards that are choosing to use the Jasper Charles Lee Respite Coalition. It's self-directed.
Yes.
Those respite providers are getting paid $11 an hour. And then, of course, like Mary mentioned, you have the Res Care and those people that direct bill HHS.
Right.
And they're getting the $12.69, and they're, only thing I could say is they're probably paying their employers minimum wage or above.
Right, which is what I think I remember, because
Right.
we used to use people through that. And we had two people that supported our family, our son, and they both got different pay. They were paid differently, and it was
Right.
mainly on their experience or maybe their longevity. So obviously that factors in probably to some, a raise through the years or whatever
Exactly.
that they might give their worker. But can be very varied, I guess.
Right. And it is. It's
Yeah.
sort of all over the map.
So is that I mean, y'all, I know we're not talking drilling down on respite today, particularly in terms of how it's structured and everything, but I guess, do we have any plans to require, any particular payment, so that so much isn't skimmed off, the top by some of the providers, or is
I think
that
what
gonna
Mary
stay
said
this?
is set a floor of $12 so that the respite care workers are robust enough to attract them. And from the General Assembly standpoint, the more money you give the workers, the better.
Right.
So that's good.
Okay.
But we got to build the overhead to incentivize providers. When I say providers, I
Totally.
mean Boise
Yeah.
and QPL, anybody
Okay.
other than the family, because the family now is handling the bulk of finding people and logistics,
Totally.
and that works great until someone leaves, and then there's a 3 or
Yes.
4 month power curve, and it gets exhausting. So,
It does.
and also from our perspective, there's a split right here that we're supposed to be getting a difference toward contributing to our administration. We lose money on this too, because our rate difference is spent on paying for the employment taxes for the employer, as well as Charles Lee and Respite Coalition and Jasper, all those administrative fees we pay for. So I think, my calculations, we break even at best.
All right, sounds good.
And so the respite is, the first number you see is 4.7 is what we just talked about. We're also asking a second component is because respite is increasing at 12% a year. It's one of those services that are so sought after. Even though there's low access,
Yeah,
people are still getting it.
yeah,
And we've got to be better at identifying our incremental costs and asking for funds, otherwise it eats into our base. So that's just keeping up with our utilization. Number 3 is early intervention. That is the same situation. Obviously, you all know what early intervention is. Historically, DDSN has absorbed all increases in early intervention, BabyNet. I can't explain why, other than it was a small program at one time and didn't seem to matter too much.
right.
But ever since HHS has really emphasized BabyNet, everything's taken off.
Right.
And so our increases over
Because
the
they're
last,
following the laws now, providing the services.
well,
That
they're
were
right.
really bad in our state and not being accessible, BabyNet not being
Right.
pushed out enough and for
Right.
families that need it, so they didn't know about it, so it wasn't accessed, so, yeah.
Well, there were some compliance issues with those
Yeah,
when that was
Yeah.
housed at other
And,
products.
and a lot of it had to do with timeliness too, getting plans done within the prescribed timeframes. Actually, South Carolina has never been in compliance with that.
right. So, makes
But
perfect sense.
I think we're pretty efficient because we get about 80% of the BabyNet children that apply for our service, get accepted. And so these costs are going up every year, and we've not been asking for the difference. We asked last year and they did not give it to us. And so we absorbed probably, last year was a huge year because of the fee for service twist. But we probably absorbed $1.5 million last year at Hyde to service this. And now we're asking for 1.7 this year to keep up with utilization.
Okay,
Number 4, we're asking for 28 residential settings to serve 4 special needs populations. And I don't have to convince this group here that there's a need for residential housing in the system.
yeah,
Our challenge is, and I think it's one of the biggest challenges we have, and really just as a family's job, he's the gatekeeper to ensure critical needs. And in the past, I think we've been pretty, not as fair and objective as we are now. And so, but we still, you look at the critical need list, 76 people with 130 days on the list. So there's a need out there. We decided to target our residential settings to what we call high needs categories. We're asking for 2 CTH2s to serve 8 traumatic brain injury consumers. 2 for, and this is something that has really exploded in the last 2 or 3 years, the autistic youth and specialized staff. And the definition of that is, we're looking, the 18 to 24 seem to be, they're aging out of school, they're aging out, and next thing you know, they have all this time and energy, and families are just literally can't manage them. So we need some capacity, and I'm not saying these are triage beds, they're full-time beds, but at the same time, there has to be some capacity to provide services to this group that we just can't get our arms around. And then we have 2 more CTH2s for general high management consumers and 1 CTH2 for high management newly diagnosed consumers. But it's a new initiative with Department of Mental Health. Mary, you want to comment on any of those 4 needs?
No, I think that basically we've discussed all this time that there is a definite need for these. We just have to build the model, and mental health's willing to do that for the duly diagnosed. We just have to find a provider that's going to work with us on the autism, the high needs youth with autism, that we obviously have to do something. But I think we're going to have to build a model. This gives us, we'll work on the model this year, and if we get funding, we can go ahead and implement what we work on. But that's what's on our radar, is to start working on the actual, this is what we want it to look like, and then build that. So it's definitely a need. I think with all the publicity we've gotten with these high profile cases, we could actually put names to this, to these numbers, which I think is a very effective way of doing this.
So Mary, if the freeze for mentor is lifted, how does that affect what you've asked, what's the budget has for that line item, which addresses, high need, typically autism, patients that need, basically, residential options, which right now, because of the freeze, mentor can't take any. So
Right.
just thinking how that would play into this, if it goes one way or the other, yes.
Yeah, and they also have 2 empty facilities that could be utilized to that,
Yeah.
whether somebody else leases that from them or, I really don't know. I didn't think about that too hard.
Okay.
Basically, they don't do specifically youth with autism.
Right, they don't, but this is just an overall increase and improve access to.
Right, yes. This is going beyond the funding bands that we already have out there. Anything that's already been allocated into the pool of funds that we have, whether they're vacant or not, is one thing. These are additional. So we're asking for more.
So another thing that, as I'm, trying to wrap my head around, the situation with Mentor and just, my learning of as a new commissioner and learning different things about who we serve and, what our population is. And the needs are. I wanted to ask you, I know that from my research on Mentor and just really trying to dive in to understand the past, the current situation, what they've done in terms of, meeting our requirements or requests to move towards the lifting the freeze, closer to that, based on what they've done. I understand that a high population of who they serve have mental illness, a dual diagnosis of mental illness. And that was not something I expected because of what I know about who we serve and what our mission says and our definition. So, and I have to literally start there because of the new, me trying to get up to speed with what we do and what we aren't, requires me to look at exact definitions and terminology. So can you help me with this one situation? Understand how often we serve people with a known mental illness and
Quite
how
often.
often mental health helps support us in those needs, since it's their population as well.
Yeah. One, very often. Frequently people, the instance of dual diagnosis or the instance of mental health issues in the population of folks that we support under our mission, people with intellectual disability, is virtually the same as it is in the general population, okay? So if it's 10% depression in the general population, it's going to be 10% depression in ours. And on top of that, if you think about this, families dealing with an individual with a secondary diagnosis, it makes it more difficult at home. So basically, if you've got someone with an intellectual disability and schizophrenia, it is very difficult for them to handle that person at home, okay?
Yep.
And that's why we see an inordinate amount of people in our residential program that happen to have a dual diagnosis. And as far as mental health, most folks work with psychiatrists. Not all of them are in the mental health, like the Department of Mental Health system, but we don't work very closely with mental health. They don't support us very much. We're trying to change that tide.
Okay, well, I think we should definitely keep that discussion going just for future, but I just didn't know how it, layers into the discussion of what you're asking for, the increase and in residential supports, knowing that we might have a provider that comes back on, in line, so. You still have to pay them though, right? So
Yeah,
obviously we need the money, but.
Right, but we talk about that, like cost sharing. Probably not, since their primary diagnosis, it falls in our realm of care. What we need for mental health is backup. If somebody breaks through and they need more mental health, they need like a hospitalization. We haven't been able to even get a bed for them. So we're looking very much into getting them to have our back on working with these folks and training our staff. But I don't see us be getting a lot of cost share with them for these normal CTH2s. We're looking at some therapeutic type of facilities that we are doing cost sharing on for the ones that are more difficult. But I think this is a subject we can talk about, but we're probably not going to have time to solve it this afternoon.
No, definitely.
It's a big.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'll pick up at number 5, and I know we have a full agenda in a short time, so
Yeah.
I will be doing double time. ASCII waiver slots, this is just straight math. We have 97 left, we're gonna use 70 this year. We will have enough to get into next year, but not finish it, so we're asking for enough to finish out next year.
Okay.
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 Child protective custody transition, this is a program that Rufus set up. Youth transition,
Yeah.
DSS, basically, we convert their foster home to a CPH1 and ease the transition. And we were double checking our math, and we're only asking for 7 for next year because that's what we're using this year. And we're going to fund it with 3 leftover slots from this year and 4 new slots. And part of Mary's strategy is we got to be completely transparent and credible in our asks, because we are working off some prior skepticism of our asks.
Okay.
All right, number 7, $500,000 for post-acute, uninsured traumatic brain injuries and spinal cord injuries, $2,200 a year. Last year we had 83. This has been going up steadily, about $250,000 a year. And they seem to give us $500,000 every other year. We did not get any this year, so we're asking for $500,000 next year. And we've gotten that every other year in the past 4 years. So that's a reasonable ask for that program.
Okay.
Number 8, now we're into, these are the first 7 recurring, meaning once they give us the money, it's forever in our base. Non-recurring is one-time money. And these are for like special projects, whether they fund it or not. Rob is a strong believer that if we have these, which we do, there's a chance that we could get them with end of the year money and his suave, debonair moves that they do.
It's more likely that they would have non-recurring money left over at the end of a budget than recurring money. It's much easier to get non-recurring money.
So we have 3 simple asks, or 2 asks, one for Greenwood Genetics. One is the electrical grid at Coastal Center. It's 53 years old, and it needs to be replaced. And our concern is if there's a widespread outage, Dominion is going to have all the trucks down there and it'll stop. We have to be their own contractor. So that's our risk. So that's a high risk area that if we don't get funded from them, we're going to have to take care of ourselves.
Okay.
The second one is transferring out in November of 17, the Senate Oversight Report basically told us to get out of the real estate business. We have 65 legacy properties out there run by the providers. We have stopped doing any future partnerships, which we used to do. And we need to move these back to the provider network. It makes sense on every possible direction. What we're trying to ask is one-time money. It's There are some delayed maintenance issues with these, and I think it's just a fair negotiating tool for them to take over the properties and for us to help some of the maintenance costs that catch up on. And number 10 is Greenwood Genetics. As you know, they got $2 million last year in one-year money, and they're asking for $2 million again this year for one-year money, and the goal is to have $10 million over 5 years to fund the genomic, and I will let you read that because
Yeah.
I wrote it and I still don't understand it.
So Mary, I thought you had a discussion maybe about kind of paying for some of the Greenwood Genetics asks, and I don't know if this was one of them, in different ways, or encouraging them to request money for their facilities and not through us. Where does that stand? Like, what was the last, did that happen on a different topic or a different issue, or does it?
No, it's basically that we want them to live within their appropriation, and we don't want to give them additional funds. And I think because they're a private entity, they have to, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, they have to go through a state agency to ask for an appropriation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So they're going to always be asking for money through us. They get an appropriation through us. I just want them to build their budget based on their appropriation and their ability to match that appropriation by billing appropriately. I think they probably need a little bit of hand-holding with developing a budget.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Chris, are you working with that at all?
Yeah, we've got to pick that back up after we get through this budget process. It's one of Pat and my top priorities to really get their billing practices where they need to be. We have some issues on that side that our finance team's working on alongside their staff, as well as potential restructuring of how we fund them to tie their budget to what they're able to generate and utilization for their customers.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
And so that's our budget. At the very bottom, we total it up. We're asking for $11.5 million in state funds, which will be matched with $16.4 million Medicaid match, 28 total.
So, Gary, do you have any questions before we move on to the next item? And I guess you're technically going to ask us to approve this budget or not?
No,
Because I know you said it might change before,
No, but
like a working.
This is the one that we're going to turn to the executive budget office on September 19th. Once we turn it in, there's still room to make adjustments, and any adjustments we certainly would run by you. But we are looking, even though the commission can't approve it, we are looking for, your vote of confidence with your vote of supporting it from this committee, which gives us confidence to move forward.
Okay. Gary?
So from my standpoint, yeah, the only thing that I saw in there that was missing that we have had in the past was some form of, it's been called various things, the rapid reaction force or the critical intervention force, whatever, something in one of those critical situations where we just need to get someone stabilized and then back into their normal environment. Not seeing that here. It may just be that we have 10 things we're probably going to get 3 of them. We don't want to clutter them too much, which is fine.
We got funded last year for our triage. So we got funded. We're working on the process now for that, and we have the money. So we're spending
recurring funds or one time?
Recurring.
Okay. All right. So I just that explains we're not asking for it this year. Okay.
And
anything else?
What we found,
I would have.
If you look back at the other the residential ask for those homes, after our study into all those folks that we were putting into a triage bed or having to send a team in there to work with them, our reorganization has developed some teams that actually go into the homes, Gary. So they're doing that. And out of that, that's when we decided that we needed to take care of those individuals with autism and aggression in more of a residential setting.
Okay. And then anything else that I would have a question on would actually be relevant when we actually get money. So-
All right.
Okay, so I'm gonna say yes, vote of confidence on how this looks right now, Gary. I guess, do you second that, or,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
okay, the next item, transfer of DDSN owned properties to providers. I think you kind of mentioned it in the budget a little bit, but
I think Chris is gonna hit that one. Chris, can you still transmit out there?
Yep, and I lost video for some reason, but that's cool.
You sound
I can't see y'all making faces at me anymore.
Pause video as well. Looks like it's been paused.
I don't know, I saw
Yeah,
the
all the videos off.
little thing turn
Looks
around.
like it's trying to
Yeah.
reconnect.
Sandra would probably need to fix that.
It might be rebooting or
know.
something,
Right, it looks like it's trying to reconnect.
we hear everybody perfect.
yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay, well, so we just went over the budget, and if you'll recall, part of that budget ask involved this particular topic. In addition to the oversight committee that Pat mentioned, there's also a proviso 36.6 from last year. Looks like the video is coming back in. That also outline our authority and need to work on transferring these 65 facilities. It is a mix of residential facilities, admin programs, as well as day programs. So it's a hodgepodge. I think there's, what am I looking at? That's weird. There's a variety of different settings there, but the vast majority are residential. I think there's maybe 6 non-residential settings. And with us owning the property and the provider operating them, there are a great many types of potential conflicts that occur on a daily basis as to, who needs to fix the window, who needs to repair the air conditioner, and so forth. So there is a directive 30005 DD that is out on our website if anybody cares to look at it, that outlines the parties' responsibilities. That directive does exist, but has some holes in it, as we've determined in working with the provider network. And so not only is this legislatively or required from those two sources, but we also have a conflict point or a pain point that we would like to fix. So we're in constant, Rufus and I and Andrew deal quite a bit actually with providers related to these matters, and it's very time consuming. So we are in the process of working with the State Fiscal Accountability Authority. I think Rob has been working on that.
Yes.
And what we would like to do is we're really just bringing this to the committee so that you got, man, there's a lot of feedback. Are you getting that too, Rufus? So we just wanted to bring this up so that y'all are aware this is a project we're actively working on. We're going to need to probably get some specific approvals from you all as we move closer towards the actual transfer. But I didn't know if the folks on the commission now, were aware of this status or this situation, and I want to really just bring it up as a informational point and open it up for any questions or anything y'all would like to discuss as we move towards addressing this issue.
I don't have any specific questions, Gary, at this time. Gary,
No.
do you on this? Okay.
No, I mean, it's been an ongoing
Okay.
issue for
Just
us,
glad you're working on
particularly
it.
in terms of favoritism. Yes, I mean, I agree that it's just a business we need to get out of.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, that was just for information, and we did want to, if we could get the budget approval, that the packet that you just reviewed, then that would give us a little bit of money to hand out to address, any small deferred maintenance issues that might exist.
Chris, what was that last thing?
I was just saying that if we did get budget approval for that $487,000, that'll allow us to distribute that as a grant to these providers to address small deferred maintenance issues they may have
Okay,
for each of these facilities.
all right. Okay, sounds good. Then I guess we'll move on to the next item. Outlier I can't do that.
Okay.
Reconciliation process is the next item. Okay, Chris.
Yeah, it's really more than that. There are a couple reasons I wanted to put this on the agenda. First of all, we're trying to bring a lot more structure to the way we do things and be more reliable and consistent in the way that we do things. And when I came to the board in June, the fiscal staff had completed an outlier analysis. We do have two different types of outliers that are out there, at home and residential. And this was an at home outlier review. And what we determined was there were a good many providers that were being funded for outliers in excess of what they actually were spending. Of course, there's also the existence of a lot of outliers out there that were underfunded as well. When we did the analysis, for the at-home, we retrieved or recouped, I have my numbers here somewhere, $940,000 from the boards, but we turned around and reallocated $486,000 of that in additional outlier funds for existing outliers, as well as some ban changes for various residential people. Can y'all hear me fine?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, because I'm just getting a lot of feedback. But
We let them know, IT know that you were getting some feedback, and so I don't know if he's looking into it or not,
Okay.
but we can hear you clear
Okay.
as a bell, basically.
So, the issue we had with this is that it was done at the end of the year, and we did amendments, and some of the providers were a little upset with us in regards to us doing that. But I stand by that decision and have addressed those concerns directly with those that have expressed, frustration with what we did. But there really is no other way to handle the outlier reconciliation process related to at-home folks. And the reconciliation process has been something that has been required and is in the directive 25011, if you want to look at it. 25011 DD outlines the outlier process, and there's in there that DDSN will review and reconcile these periodically. It's just that DDSN had not done that in a long time, and so I think people just had gotten used to, being able to retain those funds. And so part one of this topic was to inform you that we did that, make sure y'all didn't have any questions, because I didn't know if, I think somebody reached out to Vicki maybe, or maybe the human service provider group. Just wanted to make sure y'all were aware of what we were doing while we were doing it and give you a chance to ask questions.
I don't have any specific questions. I obviously will want to do a little more research on the background of this, just because I don't have a lot of history on this particular topic. Gary, is there any questions that you have right now for Chris on this topic?
Yeah, no, I think from a fiscal responsibility, it's always been that way. These outliers out there that 10 years ago, they were for a really good reason, and nobody ever bothered to follow up to see whether there was any measurable, to see exactly if what we were trying to achieve was achieved. So I think it needs to be an ongoing process to always be looking to make sure that
there was
we're
no
getting our bang
reconciliation.
for our buck. Yeah.
Yep. There was no reconciliation. They just moved outliers from one person to the next. And the major complaint was that they didn't argue with the methodology. They actually agreed with the methodology. They argued with the change in practice. And I'm like, so the practice was we didn't follow our own rules. The practice is we are following our rules. So, we didn't do anything that wasn't already in a directive. We just actually did it.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good. All right.
Okay. And so the second part of this is more geared towards fixing a broken process. Coming from the provider world, I had a lot of frustration with DDSN not responding to outlier requests in any fashion, whether it was approved, denied, being reviewed, or likewise or otherwise. I mean, so, you know, we can't do that to our providers. They need a feedback loop on, you know, we've received it, we've reviewed it, what its status is. From an educational perspective, I do want to kind of talk a little about the outliers. As I said, there's two versions, at home and residential. At home outliers, they have to clear a little over $36,000 in annual costs to be outlier candidates. And then on the residential side, they have to clear $117,000, which the funding band is 92. So there's about $25,000 there in additional expense they have to incur for outlier consideration. This process was established back in 1990, 91, whenever capitated was begun. It really hasn't been reviewed and improved and addressed as far as weaknesses that are out there. The review process is very inconsistent, and what we require providers to turn in regards to reviewing a request is really not outlined, and so everybody kind of turns in the kitchen sink, and we end up with a lot of unreliable information. So we're trying to, you know, we're going to a new funding system. We don't want to put too much time and energy into this process just to throw it out when we go full fee for service. But I do feel like it would be derelict to not look at it at all. So I did want to give you kind of some context. The residential outliers that we have funded for this fiscal year are just over $4.3 million. And that's the additional funding. That's not including the band. That's the add-on top. And then at home is almost $3 million. So we've got, you know, a large investment in outlier money. And as a result, it really should be a good process that's reliable. The other thing I feel is that the way the outliers have been allocated have not been very equitable or defensible from my perspective. And so we want to revisit the whole review process and be able to stand in front of the provider group with confidence and say, you know, this is why you got an outlier and you did it. And, you know, really try to streamline the process as well, because it's really taking a lot of Rufus's staff's time at the regional centers with very little benefit derived. So we're going to revisit that whole flow process as well, and try and streamline and generate some efficiencies as well. So we will need to revisit that directive. I don't know if that needs to hold us up as far as implementing changes or what your thoughts are there. But we do need to do some revisions here to make this thing work properly.
So, what are you wanting me and Gary to give you exactly at this meeting on that topic?
I think this is more of an informational topic as well. I think what I would like is feedback on any concerns you've notified or been aware of, if you've spoken with providers, or if there's any particular concerns that you're aware of, so that we can factor those into our process.
Okay. Well, I will certainly share any that I hear. I don't have any to share on that particular topic right now, but I appreciate the update on all this, and to get some background on what you're doing, why. So that's great. So anything else for these two topics, Chris, that you added to this agenda?
From my standpoint, Chris, that obviously the other element to it is we're going through, we see something that obviously is not meeting the rules, not meeting the requirements that we're looking for in terms of accuracy or results or whatever. We do need to let somebody know, hey, you've got this outlier, it's at risk, essentially. I don't like pulling out money from people unexpectedly. you know, whether they should have been getting it in the first place or not, people can come to depend on that stuff. So there's a communication element here as well that we just want to make sure is being done, in my opinion.
I agree. Mary, did you have anything on that?
No, but the providers were
Okay.
also asking us to look at these outliers because there's people in the pipeline for years not getting even an answer. And other folks holding on to outliers that they really shouldn't have. And
I think some of it,
rules aren't new.
yeah, some of it comes back to training, Gary, which is part of what we're looking at in finance as well, is to make sure as we have turnover in the executive director and finance director roles that they know what these landmines are out there so that they can prepare for them and be measuring them. Because they're able to run the same information that I'm using themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Number 6, Chris, you got as well?
Yeah. So again, we're just trying to bring more structure to what we're doing in the finance area. It's been a requirement for the beginning of time that providers turn in addition to audit reports, quarterly financial information to the finance department. I mean, that goes back again to the early 90s. Whoa, there's really bad feedback. We have found that very few providers are doing that. And once we receive the information, nothing is being done with it. So even for those that we have had turn in this information, it hasn't been leveraged or used for its intended purpose. So we're revisiting all that. We're implementing a reporting requirement effective in October for the quarter ended September 30. The issue is, do we pull QPLs into this requirement? The qualified providers are only required to have a financial statement audit completed if they have residential services and receive over $250,000 a year in revenue. That's correct, Kevin, right?
Correct.
And so we have QPLs that we don't ever see any financial information on. And the concern I have from a risk management perspective is we need to be in a position to foresee financial problems that may put a provider at risk and leave consumers without services. And so what I'm trying to do is devise a very simple, 5 to 7 question document that we would ask QPLs to provide us, not full sets of financials or anything like that, on a quarterly basis. And just wanted to find out, again, from the committee, if you guys support that. We just feel that it's necessary so that we can be proactive with the provider network.
Yeah, I support that. I mean, I don't know, Gary, do you have any?
Yep. No, I agree.
Okay.
Because that's in the admin standards, correct, Chris?
I don't know. We
Yeah.
looked at the audit standards, and I know their contracts are silent to this requirement. Apparently Tom had instructed Deborah Lefford, the contracts person, to remove that language several years ago.
I think there's something in
But honestly,
I think there's something in the
Go ahead.
admin standards. We just may want to revisit it and see how they're required to report it.
All right. Well, I think from an informational standpoint, we're going to get the financial statements on or about October 1st. So that'll get us into next year, and then we might have to make some policy recommendations or something in order to get QPLs to contribute, but they might do it.
Well, this is also something as part of the risk management. We've been, we monitor like scores of like ResHab scores, day program scores, but we don't really have a financial pulse checker. And this is where we need to go because, and I know we talk about residential, But we also have case managers out there. If we have a small case management entity that decides on 2 days, I'm not doing this anymore, and tosses our files in a dumpster because they don't have enough money, we need to understand that this could be, we need to see the stuff coming down the road. That's basically what we're looking at here. We're not trying to get in anybody's business except for as it affects our business.
Okay, I'm gonna do number 7. Number 7 is, Mary, I'll set the stage, you can ask for it. It's to give you a quick recap of case management for September.
Yes.
The results for August was, again, our normal metric is comparing waiver case management revenue to the power bands, and it's been going up. In July, it was 77.2, and now we're at 79.6. And when you add on the increase in target case management, they are at 84% of the revenue of the bands. And we started at 31%. So I think I don't want to plant the flag. They still have ways to go, but I feel like on average, most of them are well into beyond their break-even cost. And if they're not, they have high overhead, and that's a business decision.
Right.
But it's still challenging, but we're all very happy with that. There's 6 that are still under the 60% safety net.
Right.
And my quick,
A 3-month extension or something?
a 3-month extension,
Yeah.
I think when we started planning that, we were thinking it was gonna cost us $200,000 a month. I think my estimation, and this is just on a scratch piece of paper here, I think it cost us maybe $20,000 for these 6 people. So the cost is very nominal.
Yeah.
But I think the peace of mind for the 6 or 7 is very positive, and just, we have so much momentum going. I think 3 more months is cost effective to have that. So that's, Mary, you make that recommendation, I can make that recommendation, and we're looking.
Yeah, no, that was my recommendation, to just go ahead and see if we can do anything, these last few folks that are, and by the way, they're all boards. They're not, there's no private providers down there. So
Okay.
see what we can do or help them find a way out,
Okay.
one way or the other, but give them 3 more months to do it, okay?
Okay, I support that recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. What do we think the odds are that they'll be able to get? What's the barrier for them being over 60%? Is it?
Of the, I think of the 6 or 7 that are under, all but 1 are 54, 55, 56, 57. They're real close to 60. 1 is at like 38.
Yeah.
So there's 1 outlier. So everybody that's close to that high, and I think some of those that are in the 50s were over it last month. So I think everybody is going to get over that 60% bar sooner or later if they want to.
Okay.
And that's what we
How
call
many
it.
do we? How many do we have that are over 100% at this point for August?
I don't have that, Gary, but I can send you the chart in about 2
It
minutes.
was more than last time.
Yeah, just when you get a chance. I'm always curious as to who's been able to take
I
advantage.
got it. I sent it to you in 2 minutes once we wrap up here.
Sounds
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, I think we got through the agenda and we can adjourn unless anyone has anything quickly. I have a hard stop right now, unfortunately. Anybody have anything else on the call?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
Thank you
think
so
it's a
much.
pretty good agenda.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll send it to you. Gary.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.